Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. Today we are going to start a new topic from chapter number 1, that is human organ systems. But before moving on to our today's lesson, let's have a recapitulation of previous lesson. You all know that in previous lesson we have actually discussed nephron and different parts of nephron. So nephron is actually consisting of two main parts, renal corpuscle and renal tubule. Renal corpuscle further consists of two main parts, glomerulus and Bowman's capsule. Glomerulus was actually a duct of capillaries and Bowman capsule was a cup-shaped structure enclosing glomerulus. I hope you'll remember. Renal tubule, the second part of nephron, which consists of further three parts. The first one is proximal tubule, which is actually the first coil part. Then there comes loop of Henle, which is actually a U-shaped part of renal tubule, and then there was distal tubule, that is actually the last part of renal tubule, which is actually also a coiled part. Now, coming towards today's lesson, that is actually the function of kidneys. So today's topic is function of kidneys. We have already studied the structure of kidneys in detail. Now, talking about the function of the kidneys, the main function of kidney is urine formation. Blood present in our body contains many nitrogenous waste materials, and that blood carries those waste materials from the body and move to the kidneys. Kidneys actually act as the filter system of our body. They remove the waste materials present in the blood and form urine, and as a result blood gets cleaned. So in other words, we are actually going to study urine formation in detail, because urine formation is actually the main function of kidneys. Urine formation process occurs in three main steps. First one is termed as pressure filtration. The second one is termed as selective reabsorption, and the third part of urine formation is termed as tubular secretion. So my dear students, let's discuss each step one by one in detail. First step, or first part of the process of urine formation, pressure filtration. As the name indicates, some kind of filtration is occurring over here. Yes, filtration is occurring, and that the word pressure indicates that some kind of pressure is actually helping the filtration to occur. We are going to find out that how. Pressure filtration actually occurs in the glomerulus, the first main part of the renal corpuscle of nephron. Blood having the waste materials moves into the kidney, and from kidney it actually goes into the nephron, and from nephron it precisely moves on to the tiny capillaries, that is actually the glomerulus. And once the blood reaches onto the glomerular capillaries, the pressure of the blood is very high, and that high pressure forces the materials present inside the blood to move out of the capillary walls, because capillary walls are thin, they have certain pores in them, they actually occur as a permeable membranes or sieve or as a filter. So hence the materials present inside the blood move out of the glomerular capillaries under high pressure. That's why it is termed as filtration. The components present in the blood include water, sugar, salts, amino acids, and of course the nitrogenous waste materials. These all components move from the glomerular capillaries into the Bowman's capsule, as you have all studied in the previous lesson that glomerular capillaries is actually, or the glomerulus is actually surrounded by the Bowman's capsule. So once all these components, the useful components along with the waste materials move into the Bowman's capsule, now it is termed as filtrate, because actually filtration has occurred. So the cells, these are actually the blood cells, which are the part of the blood, and the blood proteins, which are also the part of the composition of the blood, these do not pass through this process because these are relatively larger in size, and the pore or the filter present in the blood capillaries is smaller, so there is no danger of passing the blood cells and blood proteins into the filtrate, so they do not move into the filtrate but remain inside the uh, capillaries of the glomerulus as a part of composition of the blood. So as a result of that pressure filtration process, I have already mentioned that these components move out of the glomerular capillaries, or they leave the blood. So blood, after losing these materials, becomes clean, and that clean blood is brought back to the circulatory system to perform its functions. Let's visualize the whole step through a diagrammatic representation. This is actually the first part of the nephron, which we call as the renal corpuscle. Why I have shown particularly this part? Because this part is actually responsible for the pressure filtration. These are the glomerular capillaries, and this is the Bowman's capsule surrounding the glomerular capillaries. Let's have a more clear view of the process, that how it has occurred. You have to focus only on this part because this is the renal corpuscle, and here is actually the first part, that is the glomerular filtration or pressure filtration is occurring. These are the glomerular capillaries, and this is the Bowman's capsule. So as a result of high pressure, when the blood moves through these capillaries, the components present in it, water, salts, amino acids, vitamins, and along with the nitrogenous waste materials, primarily they move out of the glomerular capillaries into the Bowman's capsule. This is the cup-shaped structure, which is actually enclosing the glomerulus, and as a result, the blood gets clean and it becomes part of the circulatory system, and the components which are collected over here in the Bowman's capsule is termed as filtrate. Now, after this, the second step of urine formation takes place, that we have termed as selective reabsorption. The name indicates that some kind of reabsorption is occurring. Yes, reabsorption is occurring, and the word selective is indicating that selectively certain components are reabsorbed. Yes, my dear students, the case is somewhat the same. I have mentioned over here the filtrate present in the Bowman's capsule now leaves the Bowman's capsule and moves on to the next part of the nephron, that is actually the proximal tubule. Proximal tubule is actually the first part of renal tubule. So once the filtrate reaches to the first part of the renal tubule, here the useful components like glucose, salts, vitamins, hormones, and amino acids, these are reabsorbed from the filtrate, but not the waste materials. That's why it is termed as selective reabsorption. So around 99% of the useful components are reabsorbed from the filtrate, while only the material which is left in the filtrate, that is actually the waste materials, which will later on form a urine. Now, for the second step, you have to focus only on this part, because this part is actually indicating that selective reabsorption is occurring. So once the Bowman's capsule, once the filtrate leaves the Bowman's capsule, the filtrate moves over here. That is actually the part of the renal tubule, and the first part of the renal tubule. As filtrate moves through the renal tubule, the walls of the renal tubule are also permeable, and these are the capillaries surrounding the renal tubule. So all the useful components which I have already mentioned, like water, salts, glucose, and useful components, vitamins and amino acids, are reabsorbed from the renal tubule into the blood capillaries. That's why it is termed as selective reabsorption. After selective reabsorption, the third step, or the final or the last step of urine formation takes place, that is termed as tubular secretion. In the tubular secretion step, as we have mentioned that it occurs after the selective reabsorption, and in selective reabsorption 99% of the useful components are reabsorbed, so only the material left inside the filtrate is the waste material, and that will eventually form the urine, and certain secretions are also released into the tubule. That's why the process or the part of the process is termed as tubular secretion. Now the filtrate which is present in the last part of the renal tubule and that moves into the collecting ducts is actually termed as urine, and from the collecting ducts it will move eventually into the renal pelvis, and from renal pelvis it will move out of the kidney in the form of a urine. Okay, my dear students, this is a comprehensive figure indicating whole process of the urine formation. Here, the first process or the first step of the process, glomerular filtration or pressure filtration is occurring, which I have already described in detail. This is the second part where the second step, tubular secretion or selective reabsorption is occurring. Selective reabsorption starts from here, the proximal convoluted tubule, then it also occurs in the loop of Henle, and it occurs up till the end of the distal tubule, and at the end of the distal tubule or at the last part of the renal tubule, tubular secretion occurred. Here the filtrate is now termed as urine, and now that urine will move from the collecting duct and renal pelvis and eventually will be moved out of the kidney. That's why the term excretion is written over here. So, my dear students, I hope all of you have now got a very clear idea about how the process of urine formation occurs or how our kidneys form urine. Now we are left with one last slide uh, that is showing the composition of normal human urine. A normal human urine on average consists of these four components: water, urea, mineral salts, mainly sodium chloride and certain other nitrogenous substances in grams per 100 centimeter cube. Water actually consists of 96 grams, urea 2 grams, salts mainly sodium chloride 1.8 grams, and nitrogenous substances 0.2 gram. These collectively make up the 100 grams per centimeter cube of urea, a normal human urine composition. So with this, we come to an end of our today's lesson, and that is the recapitulation of today's lesson. In today's lesson, we mainly studied function of the kidneys, and function of the kidneys actually the urine formation. So in other words, we have actually discussed urine formation in detail, which occurs in three steps: pressure filtration, where filtration of blood occurs under high pressure. Then comes the selective reabsorption, where useful components are reabsorbed from the filtrate into the blood, and tubular secretion is the last step of the urine formation, where all the waste materials are left in the filtrate to form the urine, and urine eventually leaves the kidney. So my dear students, I hope now you have uh, clearly understood that how process of urine formation takes place and how kidneys perform their urine. Now I would like you all to have a thorough study of this topic, memorize it, practice the diagram, and we'll inshallah meet in the next lesson in next week. Thank you very much and good luck.